What's poppin'? I'm V and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're well, I hope you're doing well, because today I got something interesting for you. I want to talk about a concept called radical transparency. So let's get into it. Radical transparency is usually used as corporate jargon, right? It's used in the workplace, it's used in big FMCGs, things like that. Wikipedia likes to put it as a phrase used across fields of governance, politics, software design, and forget this. When I think about transparency, I think about, well, my first thought is, what am I really thinking? My deepest, darkest secrets. Shooting my shot with a girl that I have a crush on, or telling my brother I absolutely hate him, playing his music at full volume while I'm filming. Hold on a moment. Samo! Turn the volume down! Sorry about that. And to an extent, it is all of what I just said. I came across the term radical transparency in the book Principles, Life and Work by Ray Dalio. It's a mix of his thoughts across his life so far, from the beginning of his working career and joined into the business world, to how he molded his company into the powerhouse that manages circa 160 billion in assets. To try and explain the term in my words would be a disservice, so let me use his. I think the greatest tragedy of mankind is that people have ideas and opinions in their heads, but don't have a process for properly examining these ideas to find out what's true. This creates a world of distortions that's relevant to what we do, and I think it's relevant to all decision making. So when I say I believe in radical truth and radical transparency, all I mean is we take things that ordinarily people would hide and we put them on the table, particularly mistakes, problems, and weaknesses. We put those on the table and we look at them together. We don't hide them. The science behind Dalio's term holds weight. We as humans tend to evaluate information in a biased manner, often falling prey to what psychologists call confirmation bias, the tendency to focus on evidence that confirms our beliefs and assumptions rather than looking for data that contradicts it. We often don't realize that such biases weaken our judgment and decisions, resulting in a reality gulf where there's a stark difference between perception and reality. We also like to overhype our success, not spending enough time enjoying our mistakes, glossing over them as fast as possible to avoid being seen as weak or a failure in the eyes of others, and in some cases ourselves. Such is the society that we live in, but I'll probably go into that on another video. All in all, there is quite an extensive list of biases and problematic tendencies we all share. We as humankind have this issue. Making them transparent and making it acceptable to do something about them will be helpful, I guarantee it. Encouraging better, more open, honest conversations where we try and find out the right solution rather than shove it down someone's throat is a good way of having a conversation about something. Transparency generates a level of trust between people. A trust where we are showing our parents, friends, colleagues, a version of ourselves, and we make it clear that we are flawed, but are willing to take on board other opinions. I think there's three ways of undertaking or practicing radical transparency, and an introduction to it will be the 3 points that I'm about to go into. So let's start with finding mutual agreement individually. While radical transparency is more geared towards work culture, as I mentioned before, that doesn't mean it can't be used for normal day-to-day relationships. Making time to have proper conversations, whether it's with parents or colleagues or friends, is extremely important. Let's say you're in a group of friends, find a moment to have a FaceTime or go for a socially distanced coffee or walk individually and develop that individual relationship rather than the group setting being the space where you interact with them. This is so that you better understand their identities. Individuals have the ability to shy away in groups, and as you get to know them on a one-on-one basis, you'll be able to understand them on a more human level, understand their tics, and how to better have a conversation, how to better have a relationship with that individual. Think to yourself, I need to get to a point where I can tell you what I really think and you can tell me what you really feel. Radical transparency is a tad bit more than just being honest. By definition, it is going as far as possible. Some may translate that as crazy. I know my dad does. We argued the other day because I didn't like the shelf that he put up for me in this YouTube studio. I thank him for it. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. I'm growing to like it. As you can see, we've got the lighting. I was too transparent, and as a result, he found it difficult to connect with me and have a conversation with me over that issue because it hit home for him. It's initially difficult, but as you slowly break down the walls that keep our genuine opinions at bay, so finding the boundaries of your transparency within the relationship will come in time. And as the bond becomes clearer, it will become clearer where those boundaries are. Don't set the edge instantly. Let a natural one occur. You might find some sort of peace of mind getting those thoughts off your chest that you felt you needed to keep to yourself. When you eventually hit a boundary, don't revert inwards. There's no harm in expressing that opinion and sitting down with an individual that pushed you to that boundary and saying that that is a no talk zone. I believe, and I think they will admire you taking the time out to have a conversation with them around that. It's powerful, it's difficult, but sometimes boundaries need to be set. And as I said, do it together, don't do it alone. We all make mistakes. We can't have life as a perfect run of the balls. That's not what reality is. If things go wrong, we screw up. And as I previously said, when we do usually screw up, we brush it under the rug or under the mat, and we avoid taking the time out to think about where we went wrong. Radical transparency is helpful here because when we and others make mistakes, we want to discuss them for the purposes of helping each other, not for the purposes of ridiculing each other. For example, if a partner is offending you, someone that you're living with, for instance, take my brother. I would want to shout at him as I did at the start of this video, but in reality, I would go to him. I'd have a conversation with him and say, look, when I'm filming, I would really appreciate it if you kept your volume down. I didn't mean to snap earlier. This is my big job, it's my business, and I would appreciate it if you were courteous about that. Having a conversation around how you feel and the potential solutions for the problem and how to move forward is a better conversation than keeping those feelings to yourself and being passive aggressive about them. Continuous growth requires deeper conversations, more open, honest conversations. Not everyone is ready for that. Not everyone is ready to commit to radical transparency. From experience, I know this is a fact. Take, for instance, the incident with my father. Most find it incredibly difficult to deal with the uncomfortable reality that they live in. And they usually take radical transparency as bluntness, rudeness, harshness towards them. But in time, as you wander down the path of openness, people do begin to gravitate towards radical transparency, whether they know it or not. It takes time, as I mentioned before, but they begin to share their thoughts, their feelings, their successes, failures, improvements, making for amazing relationships. Here's a secret. I practice radical transparency with my friends, and this video will probably be the first time they've ever realized that I'm doing it with them. And yet I have great open relationships with them. So I think the point that I've got to get to, and the overarching piece of this that makes it more than just a buzzword, is that radical transparency is about being a better version, a more open version of yourself, rather than keeping secrets. At the end of the day, it's about connecting with a fellow human on a human level, rather than playing politics. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, it's been a pleasure. I hope you like the new studio. The lighting's got slightly better, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.